What the hell do people eat on the Neverland? Hi, welcome back to my channel. I am Marcus Noyes, your Peter Pan hobbyist and enthusiast and cosplayer among many different hats that I wear. You might have come here because of my Peter Pan Facts and Lore TikTok account, and if so, welcome to my cosplay account, where I also post my Peter Pan content because, to be honest, I could not get around to separating the two. So here we are! Today I am once again going to be taking you through the lore and the story of the Neverland and Peter Pan, and we're going to be delving into the lore to answer a question which came up in the comment sections of one of my TikTok videos quite recently, and that was, what foods would be available on the Neverland? What are the inhabitants of that magical island eating? If they're not eating make-believe meals at the time, that is. So I, of course, delved into my research and pulled out all of my notes on the food and the things that are referenced on the island. So I'm going to talk you through some of the things that are mentioned in the story by J.M. Barrie about the things that the children were eating in the home under the ground and the things that were available, and I'm going to therefore make some educated, or in my case, Neverland-educated guesses about what would be available on this fantasy magical island. The first food descriptions come in Chapter 7, The Home Under the Ground. This book is too heavy to hold with one hand. Okay. J.M. Barrie says this: their chief food was roasted breadfruit, yams, coconuts, baked pig, mammy apples, tapa rolls, and bananas washed down with calabashes of popo. He also goes on to say that you never knew whether there would be a real meal or just a make-believe. It all depended upon Peter's whim. How very like Peter. Interestingly, on the subject of Peter, it's described that he can eat, really eat, but he also doesn't seem to need to. He can go far longer than everybody else for days and days and days without eating and only surviving on make-believe meals, because to him, the make-believe is quite literally as real as the real is. So that's a very big distinction between Peter and all the rest there. We also know that other things grow on the Neverland as well. We know that there are mushrooms that grow to giant sizes because the Lost Boys use it as a stopper for the chimney in the home under the ground, and one of them is pulled up by Captain Hook. We also know that there are pumpkins because there are some in the home under the ground that Wendy sits on, and again, mushrooms down there as well. We also know that if you dig in the earth of the home under the ground, you can go fishing, and we know that the pirates cooked a rich, damp cake. And also, we know that there are berries on the Neverland, because Wendy goes out to hunt for a very specific shade of berry so that she can wear it in her hair and match her complexion. This means that there's not just one type of berry growing on the Neverland, there are many different berries of many different shades. So then we have our two lists. List number one are the canonical things that are written in the text of things that J.M. Barrie has described that are definitely on the Neverland. We have mammy apples, tapa rolls, breadfruit, yams, coconuts, bananas, baked pig, berries, mushrooms, pumpkins, and, you might not want to eat this one, but rich damp cake. Pulling on all of that then, I'm going to use the small vestige of common sense that I do possess to write a comprehensive list of what I do think would be available to you on the Neverland. So you would have things like fruit, for example, things like apples, bananas, berries, oranges, pineapples, any different type of fruit you can pretty much imagine, I think. You would have vegetables as well, of course, anything that can grow, really. So mushrooms, pumpkins, tomatoes, onions, garlic, carrots, potatoes, courgettes, peppers, peas, sweet corn, pretty much, yeah, any veg you can possibly imagine, you can grow it on the Neverland. I also thought about things like honey and tree sap and things that could be used to sweeten things like that would also be found quite naturally. And then, of course, you have nuts of any description, from coconuts to acorns, that kind of thing. And I also imagine that there would be grains, so you could grow things to get oats, you could make flour, that kind of thing as well. Of course, you would also be able to fish, not just in the Lost Boys hideout if you dig in the floor. There is at least one lake on the Neverland, which is sometimes frozen over. There is Kidd's Creek up to the mouth of the Pirate River, and of course there's the ocean all around you. And then, jumping off the back of the baked pig referenced in the source material, anything that you can hunt, really, would be available to you on the Neverland. If you're feeling particularly brave, you could go hunt one of the crocodiles. There are also canonically wolves and bears and various other beasts, great and small, so if you're in the hunting mood, go do some hunting. And then we have the extras that I'm adding to this list. Things like butter. You could probably get milk on the Neverland. I imagine there are cows or some fantasy equivalent. Peter has ridden a goat while he was in Kensington Gardens, so potentially goat's milk, something like that. There would be dairy products available, or more realistically, some plant-based alternative. Either way, you could definitely churn your own butter. And therefore, you could argue you could also make cheese and cream and various other things like that. I'm also including sugar on this list of available things on the Neverland because it's possible to make. And that's what I'm going with. But there are some other things too, which I'm putting into this sort of magical exception group. And this is things like bicarbonate of soda, baking powder, things like that. And for those, I'm just going to use the all-encompassing title of fairy dust. So I have my list then. I've got my list of all the foods and ingredients and things I think would be available to you if you were living on the island of the Neverland. Now, what to do with it? I could just leave the video here. I could talk you through a little bit of the lore of the Neverland. I could tell you some more about the Lost Boys having make-believe meals and some real ones. And I do love researching the lore and the history of Peter Pan and fact-checking myself and getting more and more detailed as I go. But you know what I also love? I love exciting new experiences. And I think I can do something pretty cool with this. So my plan then is I am going to spend a whole week eating like a Neverlander. So now I present unto you the rest of this video, which is a vlog of my week eating like a Neverlander. Let's see how this goes, shall we? After I finished my week, I decided I wanted to have a sort of token of everything that I had done. So I have created a Neverland recipe book. I'm going to chuck all of the recipes in here, and I will probably throw them onto my Ko-fi and my Patreon as well so that people can have access to them. I will chuck those all up so that you guys can create them however you want. You can add things, take things away, or you can stick to the complete Neverlander diet that I did, and you can do them exactly the same way. Alrighty, let's get into the vlog and show you how all of these different meals went. Some of them were brilliant and amazing, and I will definitely have them again. Some of them were, let's call them a work in progress and leave it at that. The cookies in particular, by the way, were very, very nice. Alrighty then, eating like a Neverlander, let's go through my wonderful, crazy, chaotic, and very Neverlandy week. And here we have it. These are the ingredients I'm going to be using to make my first meal. Oh wait, hang on, I forgot. There we go. These are the ingredients I'm going to be using to make my first meal. So we've got tomatoes, we've got red onion, we've got garlic, we've got basil, we've got some mixed herbs, we've got paprika, and we have coconut milk. What is this meal then? Well, it is very easy. It is going to be soup. I am far too much of a chaotic being to talk you through this normally, so I crushed the garlic, I chopped the onions. Yeah, no, I'm not going to do that. So when I was doing this recipe, I was thinking about the Peter Pan story, and I was thinking about how you would make things on the Neverland. And I thought that anything you could make essentially in one pot, like one big boiling pot on a stove or over a campfire, that would be the most easy and logical way to do things. So that is why soup was the first thing that came into my head. I will be using sort of one pot bakes later on as well. So if you've only got one pot on the Neverland, you will be okay. Here we have it, the first meal I have made in my week of eating like a Neverlander. This is red onion, tomato, basil, herbs and garlic soup, and it has a bit of coconut milk in it as well. I'm quite excited. All right, let's try this. Oh my god, that is genuinely really nice. Okay, we are having the leftovers of this all week. Success! Welcome to the Neverland. Alrighty, for this improvisational recipe, we have got dates. You could use figs or prunes, something like that. And I've got chopped and flaked almonds. You can use whatever nuts I guess you want. I am very picky with nuts, so I'm going to use almonds because they're one of the few nuts that I like. I'm going to add them all into the mixing bowl, and I'm going to add a few more things as well, and we are going to improvise and see how this goes. Alright, this is the batter that we have now got. It is some flour, which obviously can be made by crushing things and stuff. It has got a tiny, tiny, tiny bit of bicarb, and it's got a little sprinkling of baking powder as well. I'm going to call that fairy dust. We're adding the fairy dust just to see what the frick happens. And it has a tiny bit of coconut milk or oat milk, whichever you want to put in there as well. Added to this, we've got the dates and the almonds and some honey as well. So all these natural things, including the fairy dust that you can find on the Neverland, is now going to go into this baking thing. Hi, dog. And we're going to bake it for a bit and see what happens. Might be tasty, might be vile. We'll find out. Alright, this is what we have thus far. Well, it doesn't look unappetizing. This is my next experiment. I am trying to make banana bread. Unfortunately, I only had a couple of bananas and I really needed 4 or 5 for this recipe. So I added some other stuff in there with it as well, and hopefully it will turn out okay. The dog is certainly not sure about it, but we shall see. We shall see. I know you're not really supposed to look and open the oven, but look. It's bubbling and it smells really good. Turns out the honey cake is actually pretty good, especially if you have it with some berries. The banana bread was definitely suffering from the lack of bananas, but it still tasted perfectly nice. Unfortunately, I had previously used the bananas for... Today, we are making Neverland smoothie. We have some banana already, and I'm about to add some fruit, and then I'm going to add some almond milk or some oat milk and some honey. It is the first Neverland dinner time, so I am experimenting. I'm going to have sweet potato and a normal potato. I am going to bake them in the oven. On the Neverland, obviously, you could bake them over a campfire, things like that. So we're going to have some baked potatoes, and I'm going to experiment with what I want to put in them and with them. I'm thinking about salad and sauce and stuff like that. So we're going to bake these first, and then we'll work on what goes with them. We are making a sauce to go with my baked potatoes. So we're doing a sort of veggie sauce. We've got some tomatoes, some garlic, obviously garlic. We've got mushrooms this time, because there are mushrooms on the Neverland. These are described in the text. Got some pepper and some red onion. What are you doing in there, guys? Chilling? Cool, cool. And this is the end result. These are normal baked potatoes. There are baked sweet potatoes at the back. This is just some spinach, because I love spinach. And this is a concoction of vegetables. So we've got mushrooms, peppers, red onion, garlic, tomato. And I added some balsamic vinegar to make it sort of like a bruschetta-y style sauce. So here we have the makings of another dinner. I'm going to make a veggie hot pot, and it's going to have dumplings on it. The best thing about this hot pot is that you can throw in pretty much anything that you like. I used a lot of veggies, obviously, and a lot of beans. Now, you can use cans of baked beans. I did use some of those, but I also used normal beans that you could have sort of, you know, plucked off a bush as well. So add whatever you would like. Veggie, non-veggie, anything. And now we make the dumplings. Real simple. Might not be the kind of dumplings that you were used to if you're used to the sort of very squidgy ones that go inside. Sorry, I can't have those. The ones that just taste like raw batter. Can't be dealing with those. So this is soft spread, self-raising flour, herbs, and some almond milk. Although you can use whatever butter and milk you want. All right, let's go. These dumplings just make me so happy. This recipe is one that I have made before, but I have adjusted it for my Neverland purposes. I just love it so much. So you chuck your dumplings on top, shove a few more herbs on them, and then you bake it for about 20-ish minutes, depending on how well you like your dumplings cooked. Oh, it's so yummy. Look at it. Look at this. Oh, just so yum. So yum. And you can add anything that you want to it, really. You could have veggie sausages or normal sausages or any sort of thing that you want in there. It doesn't have to be just veg. This fed me for at least 3 meals this week, and it is just so good. I will definitely be having it over and over again. I'm having a hankering today, and so we're also going to be making cookies. I've done a few like flat bready cakes and stuff, and this time I'm going full scale. We are using sugar, we're using brown and white sugar, and I'm going to be making some Neverland cookies. These are with almonds and sultanas and oats, just sort of things that you could naturally find. You know, you could get oats, sultanas you could make, you know, you could dry out the grapes and stuff. Almonds, again, nuts all over the Neverland. I might even be adding some cinnamon, because that'll just add a little bit of zing to them. You could add some cocoa powder, or you could add raisins if you prefer raisins. I might add some dates, but I'm also thinking I'm going to save these for something else later on. So this is what I'm using currently. Let's go. Originally, when I first decided to do this, I was going to avoid sugar entirely because I just wanted to purely make things based on what you could find on the Neverland and what would be accessible. But then the more I looked into it, the more I thought, yeah, sugar, well, you could sort of put it under the label of fairy dust along with, you know, the bicarbonate of soda and things like that. But also, along with things like flour, sugar is made by people. People make sugar, you know? So I feel like you'd maybe have to learn how to do it if you didn't know how to do it already. But there are definitely people, inhabitants of the Neverland, who could teach you how to make sugar, or just who make it themselves, who could give you some of theirs. So yeah, I definitely feel like it's something that would be available, and therefore I am not making this a completely sugar-free week. But I did still want to lessen my overall sugar intake, so instead I halved the amount of sugar that I would normally put into a cookie recipe, and I replaced the sugar with some extra flour and some extra oats and some extra almonds and some extra sultanas. So still very tasty, still very sweet, but just slightly less sugary. And the dog enjoyed helping me to clean the bowl. Cookies. And now we put the second half in, and we wait for this lot to dry. Good God, he's going to town. Look, this cookie formed itself into the accidental shape of a heart. Ah, Come here, cookie. Nom, 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 nom. I made some extra cookies on my very last day of the week, and for my birthday, one of my friends got me this amazing plate, and I wish I'd had it all week when I was doing all of my stuff, but just look at it. Today, we are making a vegetable pie. I'm going to be brave, and I'm going to attempt to make my own pastry. However, if it does fail, I have this just in case. So bear with me, if the pastry goes horribly, horribly wrong, we will be using the Just Roll instead. I will not judge you if you are making these recipes along with me from the recipe book. I will not judge you, however you choose to make the pastry. No judgment here. As ever with all of these recipes that I'm creating, you guys can do them however you would like to. If you would like to make a pie and you want to add different things to it, if you want to add fish, if you want to add meat, if you want to add different types of veggies, if you just want to add one vegetable, if you want to add whatever you want, that is absolutely fine. It is pretty much up to you guys. I will throw the recipes up onto my Ko-fi and my Patreon, as I say, but I will be letting you just go to town with them. Make it however you want. Oh, look at the dog eating his piece of carrot. For my pie, I just added every single vegetable that I had. I didn't include mushrooms at this point. I think I'd used them all up already. But if you were going to make a sort of chicken and mushroom pie, that would definitely work. I would recommend sweet corn and peas with that as well. Something I had never done before, but I tried when I was making this pie, was I made my own gravy. So that's the sauce. You can see all the veggies going into it now. That's what the veggies were cooking in. And I just added some flour and turned it into a thick, creamy sauce. It was really good. Now, I'm not going to lie to you, my wonderful jelly spoons. When I was making this pastry, I was convinced I was doing it wrong. Because when I was mixing it up, the recipe kept saying, it will be breadcrumby, it'll be like breadcrumbs. And this clearly is not like breadcrumbs. Nothing was falling off, it wasn't like breadcrumby. So I just went with it. I put it in the fridge for the allotted time. I think it was about half an hour. And I waited. And, well, as you can see, it went okay. It rolled out, it stayed together, it didn't pull apart, it didn't start to fall and crumble or anything like that. I was very worried that it was either going to crumble or just turn all sort of stringy and rubbery and gross, but actually, it was okay. I needed it, I did the thing, I rolled it out with a rolling pin, as you can see now, here comes the rolling pin, and actually, yeah, it fitted in the dish, it was fine, it didn't crack, I rolled it out. I even remembered to leave myself some leftovers to make a lid, a top for the pie. So here is my very beautiful, definitely perfectly technically executed pie base that's gone in the tin. And then this is just all of my cooked vegetables in that lovely sauce that was made from the water that they were boiling in, and some flour just to make it into more of a sort of creamy, thick, gravy-ish sauce. So I added all those, put the top on, pinched the edges around, and it stayed together. And again, at this point, I was just completely amazed. So I added a little N into the middle, as you can see in a sec. I put a little N in it to mean Neverland pie. Look at it, a little Neverland pie. And also, you know, to let the air out while it was cooking, because I learned the hard way that that's what you have to do. And then I shoved it in the oven for about 40 minutes. And this is the result. It's a pie. A whole pie. And it lasted me about 4 meals. You can cut it into quarters, or if you make a bigger one or a taller one, it can last you even longer than that. I had mine with some salad. It was amazing. And the dog was also very impressed. So today for dinner, we're doing something slightly different. Again, we're using red onion and garlic, some of my favourite ingredients. And this time we're doing a Neverland take on Dauphinoise potatoes. So I'm going to get some peas and I'm going to boil those. I'm going to cut strips of potatoes. I'm going to boil those as well for a little bit. Fry off some garlic and some onion and some pepper and some mushrooms and some courgette. And then I am going to dunk it all into a creamy sauce, and then I'm going to bake it. Like Dauphinoise potatoes, but slightly less fancy. I'm thinking I might call this something like piratical potatoes, something like that. All right, let's go. I have had a thought, my wonderful jelly spoons. So while you're watching this video, while you're watching me delve into the lore and the history of the Neverland and what you would eat in creating all these recipes and these dishes and things, can you help me to think of some names for them? I have just sort of called them what they are. I've got the dumpling hot pot, you know, the sort of not quite Dauphinoise potatoes. But can you help me think of any sort of maybe punny names for them, like pirate pot pie, but, you know, better and things like that? Let me know in the comments below. I made a pie! I didn't really film making this because it was very, very easy, and also because I forgot to, and also because this is the shop-bought pastry. I did not really have the time or the inclination to make more pastry, although it went okay for the pie. So this is shop-bought pastry, short crust pastry, and then we've got a layer of jam on the bottom, and then sliced apples and a bunch of fruit. Now it is a little bit runny because the fruit has obviously softened and made it go a bit squidgy, but that is fine. When I cut into it, it'll just mean you've got some sauce to go with it. And now I am doing something very exciting. I am making vegan ravioli. Really exciting. I have never made my own pasta before, and of course it being vegan means that it was slightly more awkward to find a recipe for, but in the end the recipe only had like 3 ingredients. It was essentially cold water, a splash of milk I believe, and some flour. So all in total yeah, it's going interestingly. I roasted some vegetables, which is some onion and some courgette and some peppers, and I've roasted them and I've put them inside after I have rolled out this pastry. And it's really thin, and I'm so scared it's gonna break every time I'm putting stuff in it. And then I'm making little parcels, and I did that thing with a fork where you smush around the edge so it all stays together. And then I boiled it. Now, I did make a separate decision, which was not in the original recommendation recipe that I was following for this. I did deviate a little bit. I basically just took the recipe for how to make the pasta and went on my own way. So I boiled it for about 5-6 minutes, but then because it was still a bit squidgy, I decided I was going to grill it instead. So I grilled it once it had been boiled and made a little sauce, and actually it was really nice. Welcome back. And I am now wearing this raccoon onesie that a raccoon lent to me while I was on the Neverland. Yeah, this is totally what happened. So, I have just spent an entire week eating like a Neverlander, and I have created this recipe book. I may have put this in the video before I show you this. I am not sure. That'll be up to editing me to decide later. I created it. The front cover is kind of a mess. The back cover is covered in fairy dust and also a mess, as am I, covered in fairy dust. So, let's talk about it then. My week of eating like a Neverlander. What do I recommend? What do I not recommend? Let's talk about it. I really recommend all of it. Even if you're not very into the story of Peter Pan and the world of the Neverland, it was still a really interesting food experiment. I had to make everything within reason, almost from scratch, particularly things like sauces, which sometimes I am guilty of getting out of jars. I am very used to relying on jars of pesto and things like that. And I even managed to make some pasta that didn't completely fall apart or suck. That was really cool. I made pies, I made pastry. I have made pastry before, but never much. I usually just get the pre-rolled stuff. So it was really exciting to know that I can make this stuff. And it is, more to the point, edible when I make it. I was going to attempt to make a Swiss roll. That was going to be quite fun, but I had already made quite a lot of cookies and various other sweets by that point, so I really just didn't feel like having any more. And I also fancied trying pizza, but I didn't get time to do that, and I also didn't have any of the right yeast in my house, so I might post a quick update on that on my Instagram at some point, just saying how the Neverland pizza went, because I will try to get the yeast and do that at some point in the next few weeks as well. And last we have the snacks. I don't think I'm really going to rate these particularly, but I'll just talk you through some of the things that I had that won't have been shown in the vlog because I didn't video absolutely everything. I think I did show you me making a smoothie though. They were really good. I had a lot of those this week. They were really, really nice, very refreshing. You can make them with any type of fruit that you wanted. For some of my smoothies, I added some honey, but for others, I just relied on the sweetness of the fruits and things like that. So feel free to experiment with that and do it however you want to. Also, you could add syrup if honey isn't really your thing. Something else that I made this week was vegan jelly. I was thinking about things that you'd be able to create if you just had boiling water and, say, the juice or the sap out of trees. I feel like eventually you will be able to whip up some sort of jelly-like substance on the Neverland, or even something like jelly beans. Man, I really want to try and make jelly beans now. So that was interesting, and I wish I could say that the jelly lasted me for a long time, but I ate the entire thing in one sitting. It was very nice. When I made my list of foods that would be available to you on the Neverland, I included things like grains to make flour and oats. And using the oats, you can add them to things like cookies, or you can make porridge and cereal. So I had a lot of porridge. I would add some fruit to it, a drizzle of honey, that kind of thing. And I would use coconut milk or almond milk and various different things to create the porridge itself. You could also make cereal and things like that too. So plenty of that was had this week. That was most of my breakfasts and lunches. And to round off my snacking, I also had things like fruit and vegetables. So I had apples and bananas, I had carrot sticks and various things like that. At one point I even ate a whole tomato, just sort of like an apple, because it was a really good tomato. And there you have it. That brings us to the end of my Neverland recipe book for now. I might add some more things later on. I will be putting all of these recipes up on my Patreon and my Ko-fi, so feel free to jump on those places to access them if you would like to. If you have any other ideas for things that you could cook or create if you were going to live on a sort of Neverland-esque diet, let me know down in the comments below. And also let me know what you think about the things that I created. What do you think of my week spent eating like a Neverlander? Is it a diet that you could do? What would you add? What would you take away? Do you think it's going to catch on and be the whole new fad and phase? As always, thank you for joining me, my wonderful jelly spoons. You have been fantastic as ever. If you would like to support me on my Ko-fi or my Patreon page, then there are links to those down below. If you would like to get a commission from me, then I am doing personalised in-character messages. I'm also considering doing personalised in-character letters so you can get some mail. Haven't decided about that one yet. The Etsy stuff is still ongoing and incoming. I am adding new things to the Etsy idea right now, so I just want to make sure I've got all my ducks in a row before I press go live with that. And speaking of Etsy, if you would like to have one of my bleach painted t-shirts, then just hop over to my Ko-fi page where you can tell me anything you would like and I'll paint it onto a t-shirt for you. That is it then, my wonderful jelly spoons. Have a wonderful rest of your week. I will see you for another episode of Monday Madness very, very soon, and I am very nearly finished recording the next few episodes of the Nine Eyes Never Shut, which I promise I will bring to you in its entirety at some point by the end of the year 2023. Alright, my wonderful jelly spoons, have a wonderful rest of your week. Goodbye. I love you. Goodbye.